Okay, so this is the next episode of Losing Touch with Reality. It's the second book in my series, Life Beyond Silence. And the first book in the series, Life Beyond Silence, was not a victim, a survivor, Life Beyond Domestic Violence and Rape. I did the podcast on that book, and it's also available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, things like that. This is the second book in the series that I'm presently doing as a podcast. And to be honest, I never uploaded it yet to Amazon just because I just didn't. And by doing the podcast, I'm reading the book. It was published a long time ago, but I guess the podcast gives me another avenue, and hopefully it moves me to go ahead and put it up on Amazon for people to either read in ebook form or they can purchase the paperback. Um, so, in the last episode, I was talking about how I had moved to the one bedroom, how now all my kids were gone, and I had met a guy whose name is Joe, and we got along real good. He basically moved in with me when I lost my position at a marketing place. He paid all my bills and was living with me and helped me out a great deal. Um, then after that, I had, in my last episode, I had just gotten a job as a temp nurse at a doctor's office in town. And it was the ear, nose, and throat doctor. And I was doing okay. I'd gotten my job, was making decent money. Joe was living with me basically. We really hit it off. His mother, he had been living with his mother, and his dad had died a long time ago of a heart attack, actually in the yard of his mother's house. And we, like I said, we hit it off. And on the weekends, we would go to his mom's house and mow the yard. She had like a lot of acreage, and we would go and spend the whole day mowing the yard and cleaning up the yard. And um, he he actually taught me, because I knew how to do a riding lawnmower, but he actually taught me how to do like the zero turn radius kind of mowers. And it it was we did two riding mowers, and it took us all day to do the different parts of her land. And um, it was fun. We were bonding and working together. And Joe was different. He was uh, smart about trucks and cars. He was smart about hooking things up or building stuff. He was really a decent man. The thing about, though, that I didn't really know was he had once had a drug habit, and it kind of made it difficult to know if he had really given drugs up. His issue was, I think, cocaine. But he also did, like, Xanax, and it was just weird because he, um, he had lost his license and had been going to DUI classes to get his license back so he could go to work a normal way instead of having his mother or me drive him. And actually, a woman that I knew had warned me about that he still did cocaine. But I didn't believe her, of course. That fits into me anyway, because during this whole thing, I, even back with my domestic violence abuser, my second husband, Walker, I always felt like I could help him, somehow help him fight his demons. And I did try. Um, but then when the domestic violence got really, really bad, and he basically ended up shooting a gun that could have killed me, but it, because it was pointed at me, but I had grabbed it basically, and it didn't hit me. It went straight up through the roof. But it wasn't until it got that bad that I wasn't trying to somehow get him to understand that, you know, he was a better man than what he was doing. You know, I won't make excuses for him hitting me and hurting me, but he really did it only when he was messed up. And yeah, he was messed up every day. But, I mean, I loved him. I just was scared shitless of him. And I would hide from him. And I would pray that he didn't find me, because he would severely hurt me. And I had no support system. But with Joe, he only really shoved me once and hit me in the chest. And I think that was when there was an incident that I was trying to make him stop. And at that time, he wasn't even doing cocaine in front of me or anything. I didn't know what he was on, but I thought he was on just the Xanax, and he was drinking, and I was just trying to get him to stop. And he pushed me into the wall and hit me in the chest. But that was the only time he ever really hit me. He broke a lot of stuff, and he got mad at several times, and he could have hurt me, but he didn't. And I did try to help him. Well, let me go back. When we first met, he was everything I wanted him to be, and I didn't know the extent of the Xanax issue, or that I knew that he had once done cocaine, but I didn't know he had any still need to do it. I thought he'd pretty well given it up. And I don't know. I don't know what was wrong with me that every freaking person that I seemed to be with had issues. It it amazes me that, or it doesn't amaze me, but so many men that you meet, and it doesn't matter if I was looking right now, so many men that I meet have issues of one kind or another. And I've seen a lot. I've seen so much that it makes me almost cringe to think that there's nobody out there that could be a normal person. Just just a normal person, you know? I don't do drugs. I don't I mean, yeah, I've done some stuff in the past and I've drank, but I'm old now. Like a lot older. Like when I wrote these books, I was like in my 30s. And now, 3 decades later, I'm still amazed that it seems like everybody has some real issues and there's nobody that's normal. I just don't understand that, you know? I read somewhere or saw somewhere that when you get older, you're supposed to like hang up the childish ways or I guess you're I'm not saying you should like become boring. I'm saying that at some point you have to change and become more, I would say, mellow. And I have. I mean, I would say probably within this last decade, between 50 and 60, I just realized, you know, I'm old. And it's difficult to find someone that is normal when they're old and doesn't want or doesn't have issues. It's really difficult because I've tried, or I did try, and they all had some major issues. So I just, at between 50 and 60, I'm just like, nope, not going down that path. I've grown up and now it's not like I've seen the light, but I literally now look down the path and say, it's not worth it. You know, it's not worth it. I'm getting too old to help someone else because now I realize that I have to help myself. There's a lot more to that, and it's all in book 3. But, um, okay, let's go back. So, with Joe, I feel like we had the best couple of years. And then things got a little dicey um, during the last part of the years. He was, I won't say bisexual. I'll say, if I was going to describe Joe, it would be that when we first met, I thought he was, you know, just a normal guy who liked women and was not shy, but um, probably after about 3 years' time, maybe a little less than three, maybe like 2.5 years' time, he started showing interest in men. And I asked him about that. I was like, "Are you gay? Can you tell me if you're gay? Can you tell me if you're bisexual? Can you tell me where this is going?" And he said, and I'll quote, he was like, "Well, there's just a lot sexually that he would like to try." And I'm like, "Okay, well, just let me know what you're doing, because I don't really, it's not like I'm a prude or anything, but I need to know what you're doing on the side." And it was difficult because I saw him more and more attracted to men. And as far as the woman that had given me a heads up on him still having contact with cocaine, for all purposes, he had been in normal women relationships. You know, he'd just been a normal man. And now he was, I won't say turning gay, but he was interested in coming out of the closet. I don't even understand that, because to me, you're either bisexual or you're not, and or you're gay and you don't like women, which I knew that wasn't true. But he seemed more interested in homosexual relationships. Um, and it's a lot, you know. You got a guy that's good with his mom and good with you, who you've been sleeping with, but then all of a sudden there's this interest. I didn't know really what to say to that. And I've been with a lot of men. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to say about that. So, um, basically, by closer to the end of our relationship, we had moved from the 1 bedroom to a 2 bedroom, and we had still been, I would say, pretty normal life, but there was that interest that I wasn't sure about. Um, I don't know if he ever met anybody or not, to be honest. I know he tried, but I don't know. But after the 2 bedroom apartment, he wanted us to get like an actual house that was not part of a duplex or something. He wanted a little bit of property so that we could, you know, have bird feeders and things like that, and a garage and things like that. So we got a house. Um, we didn't buy it, but we were leasing it. And we did think about buying it because they kind of wanted to sell. But what happened was we get this beautiful home. I really loved it. It was 2 story. It was old. It was hardwood floors. It had a dated bathroom, but um, I liked the upstairs, and I liked my laundry room. I know that sounds silly, and I liked our back porch. We had uh, fans on our back porch, ceiling fans, and it was covered, and it was huge, and it had a big backyard, and he filled it up with bird feeders and things like that, and um, we could sit out there with the fans going, and we had a little dog, my dog, which I had gotten, or well, he had gotten for me um, in, I want to say 2005. And by 2006, the dog had moved from my place because he was a puppy to my mother's place because I said, take this dog and, you know, help us because I can't train it. And my mother is, she's got a way about her, and she literally took that little pup and made it the best dog in the world. And I don't know how she did it, except she's just not only rough with kids, but she rough with animals, and they learn real quick. But I didn't think I'd ever see the dog again, but literally I had the dog back probably within, I don't know, 6 months to a year maybe. So basically he left, the little pup left, came to us, was there for like a couple months, and then went to my mother's, and then basically close to a year later we had him back, and he was perfect. And I had that dog for 17 years before he passed, and it was really, really hard on me. He was my best friend. I know that sounds maybe silly to some people, but that little dog became my best friend. And I'll tell you other reasons why. But getting back to Joe, we were together and doing fine. Pretty much from the 1 bedroom to the 2 bedroom apartment, we were hanging in there and doing fine. It wasn't until we moved into the house that things got real dicey with him. He became more moody. He became more interested in male companionship, and he did a lot more drugs. I didn't know about cocaine until one time when he was complaining of chest pain, and I told him to go to the ER. And here's the thing, I was working at the hospital. So when I told him to go to the ER, I was like, what in the world? When they called me and said they needed me to go, come down there. I went down there, and I remember and this was probably 2012, something like that. But I went down there, and he was in the ER complaining of his chest. And of course they had done blood work. And of course they come in and tell me he's got cocaine in his system. No wonder he's having chest pain. And I just looked at him and I said, what the hell? Like, what the hell? You know, I get it that you've done Xanaxes that were prescribed for you. But you're doing cocaine and now you've done something that has made your chest hurt. Did you not know that cocaine, if you're doing enough of it, would cause your chest to hurt and you might end up having a heart attack? And he was mad because that's basically what they were telling him, and they had told me too, you know. And I was just stunned. And I said, and then you go to the hospital that I work at, and they call me because they knew that I was your person, your significant other. So they call me and tell me this, that like, and I didn't know what to say. I said, but do you realize this is now going to be on your medical records and you're going to be in trouble? Again, you're going to be in trouble. And you might lose your job. And he was like, I know, I'm stupid. I should have never come here. I was like, I just don't get it. And I left that day and went home early, but I didn't take him with me. He actually had to call his mom, and his mom brought him back to the house. And I said, you know, what the hell, you still have chest pain? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, you need to go somewhere. Like, you might as well just go now and go somewhere and let them check you out for having a heart attack. But tell them when you get there that you've done drugs. And I don't know, I guess I was pretty convincing. And he went to the hospital that wasn't mine, wasn't the one I worked at, but a better hospital, all in all. And they decided that his chest pain was having something to do with his heart, and that it had caused a heart attack. And so they went in and I think he got a couple of stents. Anyway, you know, I don't know the particulars of it because I refused to go while he was in the hospital up there. It was his mom that was sitting by his side. And but I was telling him, you know, I can't be with somebody that's on cocaine. I just can't do this. I've been through so much in my life. I don't want to have this around me. I just don't. And he had already, by that time he had already kind of changed. You know, he had already I guess I would say he had already changed a lot. So it was easy for me to say, I'm not doing this. I don't want this around me. Like, not that I would do it, but I just don't want to deal with someone that's doing illegal drugs. And you've been lying to me, basically. And I don't know for how long. And so I made him move out. He moved back with his mom. And it was literally, I don't know, a few months that he told me that he was having some issues with his kidneys and that he was in renal failure. And I was like, what? And he was like, well, that's what they tell me, you know. And I'm like, well, what are they going to do? And he said, well, they're going to put me on dialysis. And, you know, he was telling me basically it was really bad and he could die, which I get it. You know, I'm a nurse, so it's pretty bad when your kidneys are shutting down because you can't survive. That's why they do dialysis, is to flush out your system if your kidneys shut down. And miraculously, I mean, shockingly, more like it, he started getting better. They put him on dialysis, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a week. And he went for, I don't know, he went for like 6 months, I guess. And at the first, he was telling me, you know, how rough it was for him and that, you know, he could die and he wanted me to know he loved me and stuff. And I told him I loved him too, but you know, maybe this is like the reason he shouldn't have started doing cocaine, and that now he's in a bad fix, you know, with medical issues. And I had medical issues too. We were both getting older, but mine was like my heart, high blood pressure, diabetes, type 2, and I was in the early stages, I guess you would say. But it was getting pretty rough for me. But like with him, you know, the way I see it as a nurse, he had let himself get too much alcohol, too much drugs, and was now paying a price for what he was doing to his body. Yeah, that was difficult. But getting back to my little dog, his name was Pepper, and like I said, I ended up having him 17 years. But Kentucky went through an ice storm. Like, literally, we had this huge ice storm. And I want to say the ice storm happened maybe 2007. I'll have to look it up. Let's see. Okay, so the ice storm happened in 2009. And at the time, we were still at the 2-bedroom apartment, and we hadn't moved. It was a duplex, and we hadn't moved to the house yet. And that little dog basically cuddled up with me for 3 days in a closet, and we had blankets and blankets and blankets over us, and I literally had like 2 Cokes that were like 12-ounce drinks, with screw tops, and some crackers. And Joe he was grilling outside. He was, you know, basically eating everything he could and trying to like survive in his parka and like he was dressed in his parka and some mountain men kind of clothing, and he was doing pretty good. He told me, you know, you can come and hang out with me if you want to. My room is got a lot of candles in it, so it's putting a little bit of heat. And he said, I've been outside cooking, and I was like, I can't even imagine. We're in an ice storm and it is like freezing. And I told him, no, I'll just stay in the closet with my dog. And that dog saved me. I really think he did. And I saved him, of course. But our body heats against each other, plus just, the little dog didn't really have any water or any food. I had given him some water, plus he'd gone outside a couple of times and used the bathroom, but we were in that closet for probably 3 or 4 days. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have no power, none, because of an ice storm, and all you have is 2 Cokes and some crackers and a whole bunch of blankets, like kind of set up like a tent over you, and you are literally huddled in a closet with a little dog. I was so cold, and I was trying not to freeze to death. But he was right there with me, and we got through it. We got through it. It was about probably the 4th day when they finally showed up and turned some power on, and then me and Joe cranked up the heat, and our duplex 2-bedroom was getting warm and cozy, and the heat and everything was working again. So yeah, that was evidently in 2009. But when we moved over to the house, it you could see that there was so many things I didn't know about going on. So like I said, I kicked him out, and he was on dialysis, and then he just started getting better. And we had a lot of talks, but I don't know. It was just not meant to be, and our time was up after 8 years. And so, yeah, it was over. But I still have really fond memories of Joe. And sadly, after we parted, he was at home with his mom, and his mom called me and said, Joe died. And I said, what? And she said, I don't know. She said, I don't know, Kim. She said, he was coughing in bathroom. And that was normal for Joe because he had this thing about powder, and he would go in the bathroom and get to coughing because there was so much powder floating around in the air from him powdering everything from his feet to his head. He just loved powder, like shower to shower, or some kind of men's powder. Sometimes he would use baby powder, but he didn't like to smell like anything, so it was usually, let's say, shower to shower. And I had warned him as a nurse that floating in the air in the bathroom when he was covering himself with powder was getting into his lungs, and he would be coughing. But there's also the fact that if he did any cocaine, he would definitely do it in the bathroom with the door shut, because he's in his mom's house, and he would have done it at my house because, like I said, I didn't even know he was doing cocaine until he'd gone to the emergency room. But his mom said he was in the bathroom coughing, then he came out of the bathroom and laid across his bed, and he was nude. And he laid across the bed and just died. And she didn't know it for a while, and then she, went in there to say something to him and found him like that, straddled the bed, dead, with his head kind of hanging off. And her thoughts was he had done cocaine or other drugs maybe, and he had passed away from another heart attack, and that, whatever. And she said, I am talking to you, but I've been running around trying to get all the drugs flushed and out of the house because I called the police, and they're on their way, and the ambulance, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't even know what to say. And I was crying because, God, if he just had stopped using. Anyway, I'm going to stop here. It seems like a good spot to stop. But my heart was broken that Joe had just left this world before his time. And there was nothing anybody could do to stop him from using. Anyway, I felt really bad for his mom because Joe was everything to her, and she had lost her husband and now her son. And I, over the years, have stayed in touch with her, but eventually she passed as well.